Welcome to day 26 of TFIF 365. And today I want to talk about what I mean when I say that developing a supremacy-free, coercion-free, discrimination-free, and exploitation-free perspective required me to develop a practice that prioritizes minimizing harm and the needs of the most vulnerable. But before, I want to start with defining what I mean by the most vulnerable, because when we usually say that, most people just think of people who are in maybe the poor, maybe the disabled, maybe people in the BIPOC community. And if you don't know what that is, that's Black, Indigenous, people of color community. We may think of the LGBTQ plus community when we think of most vulnerable. But most times I find that people think about it from a perspective of supremacy. Like, I have more than them. My situation is better than theirs. And so because I am here and I perceive them to be here, they're most vulnerable. What I mean by most vulnerable is when you make changes to the system, because I'm a systems thinker, when you make changes to the system, what are the impacts of those changes? Who will be impacted most by those changes? And then that brings in the other point of prioritizing, minimizing harm. So I'm always thinking about, in this situation, if I come in, if even my presence being there changes the situation, it doesn't have to be some policy, procedure, or process. It doesn't have to be some declaration. Any changes in the environment, it's the ecosystem. Changes that happen. First of all, I ask, do they impact other people? Do they change their environment? And I know they do. So I'm now seeking, how did they change the environment and who was most impacted? And did those impacted, and does the changes that happen that impacted the most vulnerable caused harm? And then I ask, is this the degrees of harm? Is it the word negligible is coming to me, and I don't like that because it means kind of dismissive. If people aren't nuanced enough, it's very dismissive and condescending. But I ask questions like, if they were harmed, how were they harmed? Were they harmed reputationally? Were they harmed financially? Were they harmed physically? And then I kind of grade that. If it's reputationally, how easy would it be to remedy those things? So those are the things I'm looking for. Those are the things I'm processing in my head. So when I say most vulnerable, I'm not looking at it from a supremacy perspective, like I'm better or I know or they don't have. And what I'm looking for is, when I come into spaces, when I'm in spaces, when I'm evaluating spaces, who are the most vulnerable based on when the changes happen in this space, who will be impacted most? And is that impact negative or positive? And then I actually evaluate the positive too. So I get a better understanding, have better anecdotal. So I am a mixed methods researcher. So I want quantitative and quantitative data, qualitative and quantitative data about the phenomenon that's happening. And then I use that to further fine tune my strategies. What I learned from it, if I've caused harm, if the harm was inflicted, how do we repair it? How do we make amends? Can it be repaired? All of those things come into play. And so that is why supremacy, coercion, discrimination, and exploitation-free perspective, developing such, is not an easy thing. And why I do these videos, because when I would say this to people, they really don't understand the depths of what this means. Many people like to stay on the surface. I'm not a surface person. I always like to go below the surface. I don't care about the top of the iceberg. I want to see that shit down there that you can't see, that damn Titanic is about to run into. So until tomorrow.